with emails, but is going to recommend no prosecution. In a surprise 15-minute press conference on Tuesday, according to Ars Technica, the FBI Director James Comey issued a harsh assessment of the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server, calling her handling of classified data extremely careless and suggesting that it was possible her home-based mail server had been breached by hackers. Now, that seems like kind of a big deal, doesn't it? If your email server's been breached by hackers and it also happens to have sensitive documents on it, that seems like kind of a big deal, but I guess it's not for some reason to FBI Director James Comey. At least not a big enough a deal to actually recommend pressing charges, even though he admits illegal activity happened. But we're just sort of going to ignore that because, you know, politicians. We have to wake up to the fact that politicians get away with basically everything. They've gotten away with literal murder. Politicians have murdered people before and gotten away with it because they're politicians. Actors do the same thing, vehicular homicide, but they get away with it because they're rich and famous. It's about the amount of money you have, and it's about the amount of influence you have. I mean, think about it. We all think that it would be ridiculous if Clinton actually went to prison. You know, like, you can't really imagine her in the orange jumpsuit testifying, right? Like, that just doesn't seem like something that could happen. And so it probably isn't going to be something that could happen because we're all thinking it's not going to. You know, it's that mentality that, well, that can't happen though, so it's not going to. It's ridiculous though, because we should be thinking that these sorts of things could happen and that they should happen. If somebody breaks the law, if they're a politician, they should be prosecuted just like anyone else would be. If it wasn't Hillary Clinton, the person would have been prosecuted. In fact, there are people who have done exactly the same thing as Hillary Clinton did, and, well, not exactly, but very close to the same thing that Clinton did, and they've been prosecuted and put in jail for a long time. So how has she not been? Or at least prosecuted. I'm not expecting her to be declared guilty. I'm at least expecting a trial. In a surprise 15-minute press conference on Tuesday, though, he says, yeah, well, she kind of broke the law, but oh well. Comey's conclusion was that no reasonable prosecutor would try to make a case out of the evidence collected in the investigation, although the Justice Department has certainly done so with other cases of mishandling classified data. Those cases have involved more willful acting, and anything not directly involving espionage generally results in relatively light punishment. Now, I'll grant that, yeah, intent is a huge part of the law, but we're talking about someone who was a former attorney, right? She's worked in a law office before. I'm pretty sure she knows how the law works. So she has to know that whatever she was doing or is alleged to have done was illegal. So what's the deal here with this lack of prosecution? Of course, it's protection of a protected class of politicians. So it's something to be expected. It's just annoying every time you see it. You know, it's one of those things where, yes, it's frustrating, but we all kind of know that it's going to happen even before it does. Like, we all deep down know that she's not going to go to prison. And that's kind of the obnoxious part about it, is that the whole thing seems like sort of a circus because we all know she's not going to go to prison. Oh, well. But this still raises the fact that the emails are more or less open to be read by a lot of people. The emails have been leaked online. They've been released by the State Department. There are a lot of emails that we've read that are certainly interesting, where they talk about Julian Assange a little bit. They talk about WikiLeaks. They talk about all sorts of interesting things in the leaked emails. But it's not as damning as we would like, I guess. It's not necessarily the content of the emails as much as it is where they came from and how they were stored. It's improper storage of sensitive material, I guess is how you would put it. And people are prosecuted for that all the time, but she won't be because she's Hillary Clinton, and she's not like everyone else, unfortunately. If she were like everyone else, they would have thrown her under the bus, but because she's not like everyone else, she's in the protected class, that special protected class that gets to get off scot-free when committing horrific acts like, you know, what she did. But anyway, speaking of horrific acts committed by government officials, there's another one here, which they do it all the time, by the way. This time it's a DEA agent, Sean Bridges, who apparently tried to quietly change his name to Calogero Esposito and smuggle away $700,000. Newly unsealed court documents have revealed that one of the corrupt federal agents investigating the Silk Road, which you may remember was an online drug marketplace that sold drugs to you through the deep web, and it was actually pretty cool, but it was shut down by the DEA, so oh well. Sean Bridges was one of two agents who pled guilty to stealing from the deep web market, though. Bridges stole about $800,000 worth of bitcoins from Silk Road drug dealers after he and a partner arrested a Silk Road admin and then learned how to reset passwords. That led to Ross Ulbright, who was convicted of running Silk Road in February of last year, attempting to order the murder of the admin Curtis Green. Ulbright was sentenced to life in prison last year, assuming that he actually did call the hit, which I don't know for sure, because the government says he did, but I'm not really certain about that, because government says a lot of things that turn out to not be true. Bridges' scam was later discovered, and the former Secret Service agent who served on a Baltimore-based task force investigating the Silk Road was arrested in March of 2015. He pled guilty a few months later. In January, he was arrested yet again 1 day before he was scheduled to turn himself in. The documents unsealed on Thursday shed some light on why the second arrest took place. Apparently, the Secret Service agent was doing a lot of illegal things. And this leads to an interesting discussion, though, about the Secret Service. Think about the Secret Service for a second. When was the last time you heard anything positive about the Secret Service? It's been a long time, and we haven't really heard anything good about the Secret Service ever. I've never heard anything good about them. So why are they allowed to continue to commit, bad acts? Why do they continue to act poorly? Right? They're not very professional, it seems. They're not very good at their jobs, it seems. So why do we let them keep on doing what they do? Now think about this. You had the whole deal with the Secret Service hiring hookers and stuff when they were supposed to be acting as bodyguards. And yeah, some people got fired, but really no leadership change has taken place. Who's even the head of the Secret Service? Does anybody know? I don't. Do you? No. The Secret Service is one of those dirty little secrets that's not really talked about too much. I mean, yeah, we know it exists, but we don't know all of what it does, and we don't know all of who the people are who are actually members of the Secret Service. So it's just a messed up cabal, really. Like the whole federal system that we have today is just a messed up cabal. And Independence Day kind of reminded me of that, believe it or not. Just thinking about how the country used to be and how it is now, it just makes you kind of upset, because there's all these things that are happening that make you wish we could go back in time, at least keep the present technology, but go back in time legally. Like think about in Georgia, it was illegal for a long time until just recently to shoot off aerial fireworks. It was illegal. Now, I understand that, yeah, you can start forest fires doing that, and it's kind of a problem. And I understand that, yeah, it's a dangerous thing, but so is shooting guns, and that's not illegal in Georgia. So why the heck would they make it illegal to shoot off aerial fireworks in Georgia? Can you imagine what the founding fathers would think if they heard that, yeah, in the state of Georgia, one of the first states to join the Union, you actually can't shoot aerial fireworks on the 4th of July unless it's at a licensed event. What sense did that make? George Washington would be doing backflips over that. It'd be ridiculous. What were they thinking when they passed these laws? I always wonder that sometimes. Like, what are they thinking when they pass some of these laws? There's so many ridiculous laws that we've got, so many ridiculous restrictions of what you can and can't do that don't make any sense, that are just there to hold you back. No matter who you are, it holds you back. Like the whole fireworks thing, there's also the firearms issue where in the state of Georgia, yes, you can get a firearms license, concealed carry weapons permit pretty easily, but it costs a prohibitive amount of money. For a lot of people anyway. It's over $70 to get a concealed carry weapons permit in the state of Georgia. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't afford to just drop $70 on something, even if it's a concealed carry weapons permit. Now, I know people who have them. Actually, most of the people I know have have one, believe it or not. Most of the people I know have a concealed carry weapons permit in one state or another. Now, Tennessee is even more ridiculous because you have to take a class, and then you've got to take all sorts of different paperwork, and you get fingerprinted and yada yada. And that even makes it more ridiculous when you think about the fact that veterans have to do exactly the same thing, even if they're weapons trained veterans of any war, or not even a war, just their weapons trained, as in they went through boot camp and they did all the weapons training where they fire the gun and they're determined to be marksmen or not, that whole thing, and yet they still have to take a test when they get out of the service. It doesn't make any sense at all. What's the deal here? And then you get all these people up in arms about getting rid of weaponry because some bad things happen, right? Like, what is it with us? And every time there's some horrible crisis or there's a bad thing that happens, we want to get rid of that item. Like, we just sort of want it out of sight, out of mind, and pretend it doesn't exist anymore. But what is with us these days? Is it these days, or is it always? Has humanity always been this way, where something bad happens, so we don't blame the person or the ideology behind it. We want to blame the object and say, well, because he had access to these objects, obviously this is the problem. You know, he had access to an AR-15 assault rifle, which it's not, but whatever, an AR-15, and so we must ban the object itself. Next we'll say, well, he killed multiple people with vehicular homicide, we must ban all trucks. Think about the case of the guy who, according to the state troopers, crashed into those cars, and I think killed, was it 6 people died in that car crash? The trucker guy who was, I believe, under the influence of meth, according to the police affidavits. So, you know, why don't we ban trucks now? Oh, right, because we need them. Yeah, we need trucks all the time to get our goods from here to there. But we don't think about the necessity of firearms, because the people who are calling for a ban on firearms are people who've never actually had to use one before. They've never lived out in the middle of nowhere where you actually really do want one, because a coyote could come and eat your dog and you know, bite your arm off, you know, or bears in Alaska. They don't want to think about that situation, because that breaks the whole mentality of not needing weapons because you have the police and the military to protect you. I even see, sometimes I see those images on Facebook, and I don't know how accurate they are, because they're images on Facebook and you shouldn't really trust much of anything you see on Facebook unless it comes from Hot News Talk Radio. But you see the image on Facebook where it's like soldier, Army veteran talks about how he carried a M16 in Afghanistan, and he says that an M16 doesn't belong in the United States. Now he's out of the military, he wants to get rid of M16. It's like, what gives you any opinion? Like, now you're qualified to talk about gun rights because you carried a gun around? Like, okay. Well, by the way, why are they letting liberal panty waists in the military these days, right? Like, this guy's like, oh, we need to ban guns. Like, really? You'd think that, you know, most veterans I know are all about guns. They're all about getting guns into the hands of the citizenry because they know what a necessity that is. And you got these guys who are like, well, you know, I did a desk job once and I think that you should not have guns anymore. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's that rant for the day. It's just so dumb because people don't get how the real world works most of the time. They don't understand, and they probably don't want to understand either, that once you get rid of something, it doesn't actually go away like that. Once you outlaw something, it doesn't go away. Like, you know, weed doesn't go away. You know, there's lots of it all over the place, but we sort of blind ourselves to that, where parents are like, no, you can't, it's really hard to get in Chattanooga. It's really hard to get marijuana in Chattanooga. It's really not. And I'm not even saying that from a huge amount of experience personally, but I know it's not. Because I know enough people who have access to it to know that it's not hard to get. Most drugs are not hard to get in Chattanooga. There's a heroin epidemic, for heaven's sake, and these things are illegal. So what makes you think getting rid of guns is suddenly going to make them go away? You're just going to get them illegally from Mexico, like we get drugs illegally from Mexico. So obviously then the bad people will have them, and the law-abiding citizens who are too law-abiding, they're so law-abiding that they gave up their guns when they shouldn't have, are now weaponless, while you have gangs roaming the streets that have AK-47s full auto with no licenses, which is illegal right now anyway. Ridiculous. You know, people who want to get rid of something that's obviously constitutional should just be purged from office immediately. Put them on a desert island somewhere where the guns are banned, and they'll be fine there because guns are banned on this island and they're safe. Never mind, you know, wild animals that could eat you or whatever. Yeah. Throw them on an island somewhere, then we won't have to deal with them and they won't have to deal with us, and everybody will be happy. You know, I'm not saying do anything violent to anybody. I'm just saying put them on an island somewhere where they'll be happy because we're not here with guns, and we'll be happy because they're not here complaining about us having guns. Hey, did you see about the 500,000 hoverboards that are being recalled? There was a problem, by the way, not too long ago with hoverboard batteries kind of blowing up and causing house fires. In case you hadn't heard about that. So lithium, when exposed to air, oxidizes extremely quickly. And as you know, fast oxidation means fire. It's pretty obvious stuff. When a lithium battery gets punctured, it catches on fire like 9 times out of 10. And the batteries that are in a lot of these hoverboards are not very well constructed. They're just, you know, Chinese parts batteries that aren't really meant for the application they're being used in. They're meant for slower discharges, not, you know, fast hoverboard speed. So yeah, so they catch on fire and burst into flames, and house burns down, somebody dies, whatever. There was a case of one that caught on fire, I think at the Hamilton Place Mall, believe it or not. Well, now more than 500,000 hoverboards are being recalled for fire concerns following months of stories about exploding batteries causing property damage and injuries. More than half of the recalled hoverboards come from Swagway, one of the best-known manufacturers in the area of hoverboards. It's recalling 267,000 of its X1 hoverboard units. 8 hoverboard manufacturers are issuing recalls as well as 2 retailers. The site Overstock.com is recalling all hoverboards sold to date, a total of around 4,300. So the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission says that consumers should immediately stop using them, and anyone who owns a recalled hoverboard is instructed to get in touch with the recalling company to see about returning the affected unit. Good luck with that. Depending on the company, they may choose to issue a refund, fix a hoverboard, or replace it with a new model. So it's not like you have to give up your hoverboard or hoverboarding. It's just that you should probably give up the one you've got and get a new one because they're kind of blowing up. Now, I don't know who has a Swagway and who has a whatever, but I've read before about hoverboards, believe it or not. It's an odd topic to read into. I was reading about hoverboards and how there's not really any centralized manufacturer of hoverboards. They're all just sort of based on the same, more or less open sourced idea. And there's just all these different manufacturers selling them. And that's a cool idea, but you run into a problem where you don't really know who to go to for a refund or when your product blows up and burns your house down. Now, I'm not saying that decentralized design is a bad thing. I don't think it is at all. And I'm not saying that a no-name seller selling something and making some money is a bad thing either from China or wherever. I really don't think that's a bad thing either. But you have to understand when you're doing that, there is a risk involved, right? Like there is risk involved in buying pretty much anything. And the risk is sort of, you're compensated for that risk, I guess, with warranties and with recalls and such, right? Like when you buy, for instance, in the mid-2000s, you buy a iBook. Remember the iBooks? Oh, the late 90s, actually. You buy an iBook, and the battery catches on fire and burns your lap. First thing Apple does is, 1, suppress the story, and 2, pay you a lot of money because you burned your lap. That's just what happens. And that's what happens in America anyway, because we're happy with money, right? Like, we've got horrible burns, but if we've got a lot of money, we're kind of happy. You know, like, you can make basically anyone happy by giving them tons of money. Like if I were given tons of money right now, I'd be exponentially happier than I was 5 seconds ago because now the possibilities are endless, I suppose. So it's interesting to think about how that works here in America, and I think that might be a foreign concept kind of perhaps in China, where I've never heard of really product recalls or anything of the such or anything of the sort in China, where there's some product that's blown up in China and there's a mass manufacturer recall. I don't think they do that there. So it'll be interesting to see if the Chinese companies honor the recall, for one, and if they actually give money back to people in a timely fashion for another. Because you'll see stories of, well, there's a massive recall and the customer sent in their items for repair or for a refund, and they didn't get the refund until like 4 years later. You'd be surprised how often this happens. Actually, funny story, I got a letter in the mail the other day that I had no idea I was a part of, but I got like $5 in the mail a while ago for, I think it was TracFone, because there was some big issue, a class action lawsuit about TracFone, and I might be wrong about it being TracFone, by the way. There's some class action lawsuit that was like, hey, these phones, they've been charging you too much for the minutes, we found out from the Fair Trade Commission or what have you, and so we've given you $5 in compensation. It was actually kind of cool because I got $5, which I then immediately spent on coffee. So, but still, it's more or less free coffee because I overpaid for something 4 years ago. Now I'm getting sort of a return on that now, which is a nice way to think about it, actually. I would overpay. I think I would actually overpay for something now if it would mean getting a lump sum later on. I think that's a messed up mindset, but that's how my mind works. Like, I'll do something dumb now if I get a little bit of money for it later, which may be a good way to describe a lot of people's jobs, actually. But anyway, this is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio. We're going to talk a little bit more about Comcast and Netflix and the tenuous relationship that lies between them. Here at Hot News Talk Radio, 8 until 40, Hot till 40. Lick us on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook.
12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world. News Talk 1240. Go for hard-to-find ammunition. Cribs Tactical, 22 mags, and 22 long rifle. Rip Armor ammo. You've got the right to keep and bear arms. And we've got the ammo for those arms. Cribs Tactical, 22 mag, 22 long rifle. Rip Armor. A wide variety of ammo to fit all of your arm needs. At Cribs Tactical, you'll be able to lock and load with our wide selection of ammo. Cribs Tactical. Real men and their women shop at Cribs Tactical. 8115 East Brainerd Road. Go to GrimsTactical.com or call 637-8664. Cribs Tactical. Like us on Facebook. Cribs Tactical. Rubber's tough, but foam rubber is soft. Foam rubber is the star at Stuff and Upholstery, which uses it to revive your couch, your embarrassing easy chair, your boat seat cushions. Stuff and Foam Rubber in Hickson covers Chattanooga and surrounding areas. Don't throw out that favorite easy chair that's grown haggard and barbaric. New life for your seat cushions. Premium auto-grade rubber foam for your restaurant, church, or business. Stuff and Upholstery brings comfort and relief. Go ahead, skid away from flat, dull, and droopy cushions. Relax, restore, revive. When comfort matters, stuffing. 4608 Hickson Pike, 877-1616. Ask for Larry. That's 877-1616. Oh, modern day technology can be very frustrating, especially when your flat screen TV, laptop, or PC just won't work. Well, don't throw them away. Aspire computers, laptops, and TVs can fix your broken equipment in as little as 1 day. You know, they also give free estimates, and that means no charge to look at your TV or computer and give you an estimate on how much that repair will cost. Yeah, it's free. You invested a lot of money in your flat screen TV and computers. Bring them back to life. The professionals at Aspire Computers and TV can help. Aspire Computers, laptops, and TVs. Their sales, service, and parts are located on Highway 58, next to CBS Pharmacy. Or visit them at their second location now in Saudi Daisy. They're just across from Home Folks Restaurant. Aspire Computers, laptops, and TVs. They'll fix your flat screen TV and computers when others can't. Call 362-4444 in Saudi Daisy or 508-8122 on Highway 58. Aspire Computers, laptops, and TVs, Highway 58, next to CBS Pharmacy. In Saudi Daisy, just across from Home Folks Restaurant. Aspire Computers.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business? Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years, a 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock. Call me now, 875-5621.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push into the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. 12:40.
Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. Police say a 17-year-old girl in East Ridge went to a friend's house with a revolver, unloaded all but one round from the chambers, put the gun to her head, and pulled the trigger. The motive is not known at this time. She was taken to the hospital, where she then died. The investigation is still ongoing. DA Neil Pinkston in our area is talking about a community safety zone in East Lake Courts area, which would allow for the police to tell gang members to leave if they try to gather there. If a judge approves any proposed order, that would make it illegal for certain gang members to gather within this zone at East Lake Courts. After a 7-hour standoff, East Brainerd Road is now back open, and it was determined that the man who was being held up in his house actually didn't do anything wrong. An order of protection was being issued against a man inside of his house on East Brainerd Road when he went back inside of his house, and they believed that he had a firearm. A SWAT team was called and a 7-hour standoff continued, but then it was determined that he hadn't actually committed any crime. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
A few isolated showers north will pass through for the afternoon. Otherwise, partly sunny, hot and humid. Highs 90 to 92 tonight. Lows into the lower 70s. Could see a lingering shower or storm. Back into the lower 90s Thursday with an isolated storm with drier and hotter weather for Friday. Dr. Ron Phillips has released the most important book he's ever written, The Unraveling of America. He pulls back the curtain and exposes those who are pulling the strings and unraveling the fabric of America. Available at Amazon or ronphillips.org. And I'm Sports Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Pat Report. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
I generally want to watch what I want, where I want, when I want. I don't like waiting for things. I don't like schedules. I don't like really any of that, which is ironic considering the business that I got into. But I really, when it comes to watching things, like Game of Thrones as a prime example, Game of Thrones is on HBO every whenever. I don't actually know when it airs, but I know that it's probably a time where I'm either not home or I'm getting ready to go to bed. But I like Game of Thrones and I like watching it. So you get the subscription to the service and you watch it when you want, but that's yet more money out of your pocket. Is kind of annoying because then it's yet another subscription you have to pay for that you really can't afford to pay for, but you really want to watch that show. So what do? Well, lots of people turn to piracy, and that's totally understandable, honestly, considering the climate that we're in. The companies are trying to make it easier on us, when it comes to watching our shows. Netflix has really done it right in a lot of ways. Netflix should be the prime example, along with Amazon Prime in some regards, should be the prime example of how to do streaming right. Netflix has got it down. It works. It's good. The content is decent most of the time. And best of all, there's not really any shortage of time to watch it for me, because there are different times during the day where I'm either on a break or I'm not particularly doing anything else at the moment, or I'm home, so I can watch whatever I want, which is nice because that's the schedule I want. Think about back in the old days where there were television shows that would run only at a certain time, and people would either tape them and watch them later, or they'd just miss them because they were on at the wrong time, or they'd have to wait and watch a rerun. That's a pain in the neck, and that's something that most people don't want to have to go through. So, of course, there being a hole in the market and the technology available, the free market is fixing it with Netflix and with Amazon Prime, Hulu Plus, HBO Go, and now the difference between them I always forget. There's all these different services, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier for us to watch what we want, when we want, where we want. Those are the prime things that we want, no pun intended, the prime criteria for happy living for most of us. Now, looking at the news here, according to Recode, Comcast is going to let customers get Netflix on its set-top box, which is kind of a big deal, actually. So cable giant Comcast will be allowing popular web video streaming service Netflix on its X1 platform, their company's confirmed after being asked by Recode about talks to do so. The pair says in a statement, Comcast and Netflix have reached an agreement to incorporate Netflix into X1, providing seamless access to the great content offered by both companies. We have much work to do, it says, before the service will be available to consumers later this year. We'll provide more details at that time. Now, Comcast and Netflix getting together is a bigger deal than you might think, because Comcast represents the worst of the old world, and Netflix represents kind of the best of the new. Sources said the deal to be on the cable giant set-top box would be akin to the arrangement that Netflix has cut with smaller cable operators before. Basically, the Netflix app is present on the X1 platform for users to sign into, making it easier than using other ways to do so. Netflix also has deals with Apple, Roku, and Google's Chromecast, with its app offered on those different services as well. It's also embedded in smart televisions, at least some smart televisions. A recent report by Morgan Stanley, in fact, raised the possibility of a Comcast deal, especially noting that it would benefit by getting a larger bounty from Netflix for adding subscribers. It would also help Comcast have a more competitive video offering to others like Roku, Verizon, and Dish that have apps from services like Hulu and Netflix. So simply put, lots of people like Netflix, so why not just offer it easily to cable customers to make them happy? Because Comcast has a lot of work to do to make anyone happy at this point. Because basically, people kind of hate Comcast. And the reason is, terrible customer service, bad speed. There's all different reasons why people really don't like Comcast. Most of them are because of just customer service reasons and sort of shady contracts that we've heard about before, and how it's kind of hard to get off of Netflix, or sorry, to get off of Comcast once you're on it. It's kind of like how AOL was back in the day, where you heard about how basically impossible it was to unsubscribe from AOL. You had to call them and talk to a customer service rep, and it took 10 years to actually unsubscribe from AOL back in the day, and you wished you'd gotten Prodigy instead, or was it CompUSA, not CompUSA, what was the other one? CompuServe. You wish you'd gotten CompuServe or Prodigy instead of AOL, but those were the days. Man, those were the days. So the European Union Parliament is doing something that should be disturbing all of us, because it does affect everyone. You see, in the age of the internet, kind of everything affects us. Anything that happens anywhere kind of affects us here, where say there's a change in New Zealand law, that might actually affect us here, because there might be websites hosted in New Zealand that you don't even know about. And that happens a lot, believe it or not. There's also the deal of, say, remember Mega Upload way back in the day, where Mega Upload was a really popular file sharing platform that complied with the DMCA request for takedown and everything, but it was demonized by the feds and taken down. So Mega Upload is gone, but it was in New Zealand. And somehow the feds are able to shut down a website in New Zealand, seize its assets, and effectively make sure that its owner is in exile in New Zealand, which actually doesn't sound like such a bad thing. Kim.com is his name. His real name is Kim Schwartz, but he's changed his name to Kim.com. And he's essentially in exile in New Zealand, which is, I don't believe where he's from. I think he's actually from, I want to say Germany, actually, but I could be wrong about that. Well, the European Union Parliament is pushing ahead with plans to block and remove terrorist content online. Now, that sounds like a nice thing on its face, but what classifies as terrorist content should be the question, because it could be content that disagrees with the government suddenly. Terrorist content is a kind of a broad topic. And of course, it's the European Union, so we should dislike it already. Caller, you're on the air, Hot News Talk Radio. What's going on?
Love your topics for me, Russell.
Thank you.
You come from AOL, so you open the door, as lawyers would say, cross-examination. It was customer service, the worst service ever. I've had computers since 1976. It was probably one of the first on the AOL. We had full board systems and computers.
Sure.
But then people have to realize the World Wide Web and Internet are two different things. There was the Internet, which I was on prior to the World Wide Web, which uses some protocols, software that allows you to search on the Internet. Two different things. When you do www, you're on the World Wide Web, but you can surf the Internet without the web. But on top of that, using AOL, they would actually block my close Second Amendment posts. They were very anti-gun. It's important for people to understand liberals, especially Democrats, are tyrants. There's thugs, liars, criminals, and tyrants. That goes from the president on down to every other bureaucrat. And I'm not that happy with most Republicans do, probably 60%. Because I've seen it in my lifetime with these criminal thugs.
This is a coordinated monthly test of the broadcast stations in your area. Equipment that can quickly warn you during emergencies is being tested. If this had been an actual emergency, official messages would follow the alert tone. This concludes this test of the emergency alert system.
You were saying?
Wow. Okay, well, shows you how powerful government is, huh?
Yeah, seriously.
They can actually cut you right off, huh?
Yeah, maybe they heard what you were saying and they cut you off.
But just to wrap it up, I mean, just really until recently, even Facebook, they deleted all my posts, and they don't seem to be doing it anymore. But I want people to understand, prior to the internet, prior to really 5 years ago, the conservatives, I hate to call them right-wingers, we patriots, constitutionalists, had a very difficult time to get our message out. You would be fired if you were on a talk show. They would
It's over, yeah.
FBI, you're a bunch of liars. You're a bunch of liars. And you know what? They should thank God for Donald Trump, because the only thing saving them for the end of the road, I'll tell you. I firmly believe the American people are angry. But if Donald Trump doesn't get in, I hate to see what the future of this country is like. Because people are fed up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right too, because it's coming to a head, I think, with American politics, where people are sort of, especially with the age of the internet now, where people can read anything, people are sort of realizing that things are kind of awful, and they're only going to get worse.
Well, here's what I'm going to recommend if Hillary gets elected.
Right.
I want every working American to stop working and show up at the welfare office and get everything they possibly can from the government. Stop and drop. Get welfare, get agencies. Just like that illegal Mexicans that come over. Get food stamps. Go down to that welfare office and get student loans. Stop and drop. Because let me tell you what will happen. Now I'm going to ask people this. If the government can print all the paper they want, why do they have to tax you?
That's a fair point. Yeah, nobody ever thinks about that, because nobody really wants to talk about the money issue. It's so complex. You know, it's
actually very simple. There's nothing complex about it. Gold and silver is money, because money has to have the ability to extinguish debt. If it can't extinguish debt, it can't be money. Paper, even redeemable paper, is not money. Doesn't extinguish debt. The only thing that can be even wrongful with money. But whatever a government determines to be money, has to be able to extinguish debt. So this fraud goes back many years. Alan Greenspan finally said that between 1870 and 1930, America grew at its greatest rate. And he said, maybe we need to go back to the gold standard. This was Alan Greenspan, which I've been screaming about this for 70. That former chairman of the Fed.
I was going to say, he was a Fed chairman. He's normally not someone any of us would agree with, but there you go.
Well, you know what happens when you get up in age and you know that you're fine, that you're not going to be around much longer? I think something happens like the truth. And you need to get it off your chest. And I think he's getting this off his chest. He's kind of giving Americans a hint, giving them a warning that this is just paper. This is just government emitting. Actually, money never leaves the banking system where it was created. That's according to the Fed.
Right.
So we have monetized debt and tangible objects of thought. The paper is just your evidence of the debt, so-called money. So this really isn't very complicated. It comes down to legal tender laws are unconstitutional. Most of what the federal government does is. You know, I had this discussion the other day about this, and I said, the federal government has the power over three things. Hot fees, I
think we lost you there. What was that? No, I think he's gone. Oh, well, that's too bad. So he's talking about the federal government, the things that it actually has power over. I heard one of them, one was the high seas. If you can give me the other two, call back in. But the high seas is one of them. I think tariffs was another, I'm wanting to remember. And something else. Oh, anyway. So the number to call in is 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. This actually plays exactly into what the caller was talking about, though. The European Union, in its infinite tyranny, is wanting to now censor speech. Essentially, is wanting to block and remove terrorist content online. Now, on its face, it sounds pretty nice, because you think, well, we don't want ISIS spreading its religion all over the place. But what determines what is terrorist and what is not? Because it could be anyone who determines that they're anti-government, now they're suddenly terrorists. It could be anyone who speaks out against the euro, now they're terrorists. It could be anyone who is pro-UK, now they're terrorists. So it could be any number of different criteria that make you a terrorist. And even so, what determines a terrorist and what is a terrorist and what isn't one, right? And if the government sets the criteria, then who determines that? And there's all sorts of different questions that are going to be raised. And the Europeans, being Europeans, are probably just going to go along with it because they're a bunch of wusses. But civil liberty MEPs on Monday night approved plans to create a law which would block terrorist content online. The Counterterrorism Directive also deals with terrorism training and financing, as well as internet propaganda and the misuse of the internet for terrorist purposes. It was passed by 41 votes to 4, with 10 abstentions, meaning that the Parliament's chief negotiator, German MEP Monica Hohlmeier, I think, can now start talks with the European ministers for justice and home affairs on a final text. The initial draft proposal contained no reference to online activity, but they added that in 2 new sections Taken apart from the EU law against child sex abuse, oddly enough, under the latest wording, national authorities must take measures to ensure the prompt removal of illegal content hosted from within their territory that constitutes public incitement to commit a terrorist offense. If this is not feasible, they may take necessary measures to block access to such content while adhering to transparent procedure, adequate safeguards, and subject to judicial review. Now, this raises an interesting issue, because now if you can block access to something which you determine to be terrorist content, who determines what is terrorist content? There must be some sort of definition of it, which means I'd have to read the law, and I'll do that as soon as I have an opportunity to. I read the story about last night. I didn't have time to pour through the actual legal proceedings about what constitutes terrorist speech or terrorist activity, but I'm sure it's way looser than it actually needs to be. So it's interesting to read. It's always interesting to read what's being passed when it comes to online activity. It seems like we're passing way too many laws nowadays. I mean, think about it. What would happen if we just stopped passing laws right now for maybe, say, a year? What if there was just no more law? There are no more laws for about a year. What would happen? Probably not much, actually, in terms of detrimental effects. In fact, we'd probably be better off. Now, there might be some appropriations bills that wouldn't get passed, which would mean no funding for, I don't know, the post office or Parks and Recreation in Hamilton County or something that we don't actually necessarily need. But really, would it have a huge detrimental effect on us? Probably not, actually. If everyone just sort of stopped passing laws for a year, even a week, try it out for a week-long test period of no laws whatsoever. I don't think anything bad would actually happen. Speaking of which, by the way, did you see the Democrats are pulling a hissy fit again in Congress with the whole gun issue, where they're sitting and crying about how guns are not being banned in a way that they want. Basically, they're upset that democracy is not happening the way they want their democracy to happen, which is an odd concept when you think about it. I mean, think about how, especially with the UK, just recently, I was thinking about this the other day. In the United Kingdom, which I'm normally not a very big fan of, in the United Kingdom, laws have been passed, or rather a referendum was had, that determined that the United Kingdom will be exiting the European Union. It's pretty simple stuff. But it was a pretty close vote. So now you've got, what, like 48% of people who are mad about it, and probably a smaller number than that. Probably most people didn't actually care that much. So you've got maybe 30-something% who are upset about it. But that's democracy, and that's what they signed up for. When they vote in the referendum, that's what you're participating in. So how can you be upset when you lose? You're participating in the game. It's like if you gamble and then you lose the bet and you get all mad and say, well, they should have changed it and we should bet again. It doesn't work that way. And that's not how democracy works either. And actually, democracy is even less stable than a gamble, but that's a topic for another day. So why would you get upset? I understand being upset just in terms of I'm upset that it didn't go the way I wanted, but wanting to actually change the outcome after you've lost is both petty and childish. And that actually kind of describes most liberals, petty and childish. Oh, well, go figure. But really, it's an obnoxious culture that we have nowadays. And I think it's being fixed, actually, because people my age are getting fed up. Now, there are a lot of people my age who are totally sucked into the system, right? But there are a lot of people my age who you don't hear about as much, who are kind of fed up and are maybe willing to technologically take a stand. I don't know. Things are a little bit different politically than perhaps we would have projected 10 years ago. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and Colin Cowherd is up next here on Hot News Talk Radio. And I think Keon might actually be back from his long excursion out somewhere in the Atlantic. This is Binary.
AM 1240.
What's up, Colin?
Not much.
$124 in cash and $124 in food every week with the Hot News Talk Radio 1, 2, 3 NASCAR contest. All you have to do is guess who's going to be first, second, and third place in the NASCAR Sprint Cup race. If you guess it, you'll win your name live at 21:30. Then call 820 Hot News Talk Radio to win. And your guess right now. Rick Davis Golden 5301 Greater Road, Chattanooga. Sunny days across the city. These are off-road technology Sunny days for your four-wheel drive truck. Suspected upholstery with premium cover from our self-serving the broken screen and shooter satellite 4824 Hickson in Hickson.
You were talking about the guy
And your guess is down that listen to the race law. You want $124 a can, $124 at food. Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
there are things in like the, I guess in the root of like their agreements and stuff, talking about like access.
Right.
We've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
Shooter Supply Mix under new ownership, featuring special prices on live action fire, family and individual memberships, and use of our laser lights. Come on, give us a try. You'll be impressed with our all-new Shooter Supply indoor range in Hickson. No need to shop anywhere else. We've got it all, including our brand new state-of-the-art laser range. Do the zombie apocalypse with your crew team. Perfect for a birthday party. Shooter Supply in the A-frame makes it right near the wall. A real man's gun shop. Huge selection of apparels, transfers, 875-4868. Shooter Supply and indoor range, 875-4868.
That feel very,
I'm out of this. Yell that shit. Headset.
What?
You need it repaired now. We can do that.
We'll have it done
within the hour. No hassle,
she's
no
not
less,
subject
no
to
stress.
locker.
We
I know.
love fixing cell phones. Your cell phone has become part of
Surprising
your daily
considering
activities. You notice your cell phone is not charging. It could be a charge for an issue. Or your charger. Come in for free. Test your phone and your charger. You have an expensive phone. Don't feed it with a cheap charger. Cheap charger can actually damage your device.
She got
Our high-quality chargers are
went,
Cell Surgeon, 140 North Gate Mall Drive, right next to Old Chicago Pizza. 423-668-0100. www.thecellsurgeon.com. Please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thecellsurgeon.
Get $10 off a screen repair. Mention Hot News Talk Radio. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery giving out. Cell Surgeon, the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Cell Surgeon.
I don't know exactly how that makes sense.
Listen up, y'all. Ben Phillips, Home Rate Mortgage, 805-9100. I'm in the business of saving people money. And if you want to save money, pick that cell phone up right now. 805-9100. I received a call that I won't forget. A family of 5. The husband's a TVA engineer. Financial stress was rising from medical bills and children in college. We lowered their rate, paid off their bills, and saved them $800 per month. Now they're living stress-free. And the best part is this. They're skipping 2 payments and paying off their home 7 years faster. It's easy, and you can do it too. It just takes 10 minutes, one phone call to 805-9100. There's no cost and no obligation. So why wouldn't you call 805-9100? Or if you're at your desk like me, get a quick quote at homeratemortgage.com. That's 805-9100 or homeratemortgage.com.
One day.
Stop research in Chattanooga. The place to live is Cross Creek Villas for under $1,000 and available for immediate moving. You can enjoy these 2 bedrooms over 1,000 square feet. Wide ceilings, an extra large patio or balcony. And don't forget to ask about their preferred employer program. Cross Creek Villas is a gated community offering a 24-hour fitness facility, a beautiful pool and hot tub, and Cross Creek Villas is pet friendly. Stroll the pet park with your best friend and enjoy the free use of the business center and clubhouse. Plus, if you mention you heard this on the radio, your application fee is free. Cross Creek Villas, close to downtown on the Highway 58. Go to CrossCreekChattanooga.com. That's CrossCreekChattanooga.com. Or call 894-0446. That's 894-0446. Redefine the way you live at Cross Creek Villas. Go to CrossCreekChattanooga.com. Call 894-0446. Cross Creek Villas.
Is it safe for your kids to drink? It's a hot day. You're shutting your door across the yard and you don't want a faucet by your front porch. It'd be great if it didn't contain an official pollution. It's polluted by fluoride. Fluoride is an industrial waste that includes traces of arsenic, aluminum, barium, and cadmium, all classified by the EPA as contaminants. Fluoride erodes pipes. It eats holes in concrete at the Saudi Basin and Seal Creek treatment plants. Fluoride eats holes in brains, especially in the developing brains of unborn children and the very young. The Northwest Utility District, just north of Chattanooga, is going to vote July 18 to get rid of fluoride. Urge the board to vote for abolition. I'm David Tulis with Nooganomics.com. Think about it. Drinking water free of a legacy industrial chemical crap. Contact with utility district NWUD.net. Go to the contact us window. Make your voice heard.
What the hell? I like to maybe go over some old scripts or something.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the